This is the only reason an avoidant comes back into your life again after hurting you, and that is, there is a moment in every painful story that almost feels unreal, a moment when the same avoidant who once broke you suddenly returns. Not softly, not humbly, not with clarity, just unexpectedly, as if the damage they caused never mattered. And you sit there wondering, why now? Why do they come back after ignoring your feelings, taking you for granted, or walking away when you needed them the most? Let me tell you something, and listen closely, because this isn't emotional guessing, this is psychological, human and brutally honest. Avoidants don't return because of nostalgia, they return because reality finally confronts them with a truth they refused to see. When they walked away, they believed they were walking towards something better. A deeper love, a louder validation, an easier connection. They assumed you would remain exactly where they left you, hurting, waiting, hoping, but life doesn't operate according to their assumptions. Life teaches through loss, through silence, through contrast. And when an avoidant hurts a genuine soul, the lesson hits harder than they ever expected. At first, they feel nothing. They're distracted, confident, blind, but slowly, almost quietly, something inside them begins to shift. A memory resurfaces, a moment replays, a comfort they can't find anywhere else starts haunting them. Psychologically, avoidants are wired to return to environments where they once felt emotionally safe, even if they were the ones who destroyed that safety. The mind remembers emotional security, not ego, not excuses, not the stories they told themselves, and you were that emotional security. When the world becomes colder, they remember your warmth. When new people fail to understand them, they remember your patience. When life becomes chaotic, they remember your calm. When they receive zero validation, they remember your belief in them. They don't come back because they miss you romantically. They come back because life finally exposes the vacuum your absence created. The psychological trigger is simple yet powerful. Loss hits harder when reality proves that what they walked away from was actually rare. And that rare thing was you. Your kindness, your loyalty, your emotional depth, your consistency. These qualities aren't replaceable, and when an avoidant experiences the world without them, clarity strikes like a quiet storm. Their return is not about love, it's about realization. It's about emotional dependence, waking up too late. It's about their ego cracking under the weight of truth. And that truth is this: they didn't just lose a person, they lost a blessing. So now the question is no longer why they came back. The real question is, do they deserve space in the life they once broke? And as everything becomes clear, the final truth stands unshakable. They didn't come back because they suddenly transformed. They came back because life forced them to face the reality of what they lost. Your absence taught them what your presence never could. That real loyalty, real softness, real emotional safety doesn't come twice. But here's what matters most: their return is not the blessing. Your clarity is, because the real power isn't in an avoidant coming back. It's in knowing whether they deserve a chapter in your story ever again. In this video, we break down these hidden psychological truths so you can recognize their return for what it truly is: a lesson, not a lifeline. The first reason is when life reveals what they let slip away. There comes a moment in life when the impact of loss hits harder than any words, any argument, or any mistake could have predicted. When an avoidant leaves, they often assume that the world will offer them what they were missing. They believe they will find easier validation, more excitement, or a love that feels lighter. But reality has a way of confronting them with the truth that they already had something rare, something meaningful, and they let it slip away. When life exposes that absence, the realization can be jarring. It starts subtly at first: a fleeting thought, a memory triggered by a song, a smell, or a passing moment. They begin to recall how your presence made them feel calm, supported, and understood in ways no one else could. They remember your patience, your loyalty, your emotional consistency, and they start to feel the void left behind. It's an empty space that no new person, no temporary distraction, no shallow connection can fill. Psychologically, humans are wired to recognize patterns of emotional safety and connection. When someone walks away from that safety, even an avoidant, who often distances themselves from intense emotions, feels the gap. Their mind begins to revisit the moments they took for granted, the late-night conversations, the support in tough times, the quiet reassurance that they were cared for deeply. Each memory compounds the understanding that what they abandoned cannot be replaced. This realization is painful because it strikes at the core of human desire, the desire to belong, to feel seen, to be valued. It's one thing to leave, it's another to wake up and see that the better they chased was an illusion, a fleeting shadow compared to the depth and authenticity they had before. Life teaches lessons through this contrast. The world outside may offer experiences, opportunities, or even temporary excitement, but it cannot replicate the emotional resonance that existed in what they left behind. And when the weight of that absence finally settles, the return is almost inevitable. It is not necessarily about love rekindled or feelings magically restored. It is about a confrontation with truth, the undeniable reality that they gave up a rare connection, a genuine soul, and a presence that elevated their life in ways they now struggle to replace. In short, the first reason an avoidant comes back is clarity. Life forces them to see what was already theirs, what they let slip through their fingers, and what cannot be found anywhere else. They return not just because they miss you, but because life finally taught them the lesson they ignored. Losing you revealed the depth of your value and the irreplaceable impact you had on their life. The second reason is when remorse finally shatters their pride. The second reason an avoidant comes back is tied deeply to human psychology, remorse. Remorse is not loud at first. It doesn't arrive with dramatic confessions or obvious signs. Instead, it begins as a quiet, persistent whisper inside the mind, subtle, almost unnoticeable, but growing stronger over time. It emerges because even the most detached person cannot fully escape the emotional impact of their choices. When an avoidant leaves, they may appear indifferent, confident, or even unaffected. They may act as if the space they created was necessary, as if their absence had no consequences. But internally, a different story unfolds. Remorse is born from reflection. Avoidants are forced to revisit moments they dismissed, the times you went above and beyond for them, the unwavering support you offered, and the emotional safety you created without expectation. Each memory slowly chips away at the wall of pride they had built to justify their distance, the late-night conversations they ignored, the plans they took for granted, the encouragement and love they never reciprocated. All of it resurfaces, creating an internal tension that can no longer be ignored. Psychologically, pride is a shield. For an avoidant, it protects against vulnerability, fear, and emotional exposure. But when they start to sense the loss of what they once had, that pride becomes fragile. Remorse acts like a hammer against this shield. They begin to ask themselves difficult questions. Why did I let them go? Why didn't I appreciate what I had? How could I have taken someone so patient, loyal, and genuine for granted? These questions don't leave them at ease. They haunt them. Remorse also amplifies the value of absence. They may have pursued novelty, excitement, or convenience when they left, but reality gradually teaches them that no one else can replicate the depth of connection you offered. The void created by your absence grows heavier with every failed attempt to fill it elsewhere. The contrast between what they once had and what they now experience becomes undeniable. It's in this space that remorse fully blossoms, a combination of regret, longing, and self-awareness. This emotional weight eventually pushes them back toward you. It's not about nostalgia or selfish desire. It's about the realization that they lost someone irreplaceable. The same presence they ignored becomes the mirror reflecting their mistakes. The avoidance return is triggered not by strategy, but by the natural consequence of confronting their choices, their pride shattering under the weight of truth. In short, the second reason avoidants come back is remorse, a psychological awakening that breaks through defenses, exposes their mistakes, and forces them to acknowledge the depth of what they abandoned. It's subtle, internal, and often delayed, but its effect is undeniable. It awakens the understanding that they cannot replace what they once had. The third reason is when karma mirrors their own pain back to them. The third reason an avoidant comes back is rooted in one of life's most undeniable truths. Karma doesn't operate on schedule or announce itself with fanfare. It unfolds quietly, subtly, and inevitably. Every action has a consequence, and every choice, especially the choice to hurt someone who genuinely cared, eventually ripples back. Avoidants may leave, believing their independence, distance, or avoidance shields them from accountability, but life has a way of teaching lessons that no ego can escape. When an avoidant hurts someone, dismisses their loyalty, or takes their patience for granted, the universe doesn't forget. Karma works not as punishment, but as revelation, a reflection of the emotional impact they once caused. They may encounter people who mirror their behaviors, relationships where they feel ignored, undervalued, or misunderstood. Situations arise where they experience the same frustration, neglect, or emotional emptiness they once created. It's in these moments that the mind begins to recognize the consequences of their actions, often in ways that words or confrontations never could. Psychologically, humans are wired to respond to mirrored experiences. When the avoidant feels the absence of the emotional depth, patience, and understanding they once took for granted, they are forced to confront reality. The world may offer distractions, temporary validation, or excitement, but these cannot replicate the security and care they lost. The absence of your presence becomes a powerful teacher, showing them what they overlooked while prioritizing distance or self-preservation. Karma, in this sense, acts as an emotional mirror. The challenges they face without your support, the failures of shallow connections, and the loneliness of unreciprocated efforts, reflect their past behavior back to them. Every slight, every ignored message, every unmet need becomes a living lesson, a subtle yet persistent echo of the pain they caused. Avoidants often pride themselves on control, predictability, and emotional detachment, but karma undermines that illusion. It forces awareness, humility, and reflection. When the weight of these mirrored experiences settles, the avoidant begins to grasp the value of what they lost. They see clearly how rare, patient, and emotionally generous you were. The understanding is not immediate, it grows gradually, like a tide reclaiming the shore. They return not because they suddenly changed or became better, but because the consequences of their previous actions finally aligned with reality. Life confronts them with the truth, they cannot escape the impact of their choices, and the person they once hurt is irreplaceable. In short, the third reason avoidants come back is karma, the natural reflection of their past behavior. It awakens insight, confronts pride, and teaches that emotional absence carries weight. The return is rarely about love alone, it is about recognition, realization, and an unavoidable reckoning with the truth they once ignored. Karma ensures that the lessons they caused in your life return to them, prompting reflection, accountability, and often, the journey back to the one they lost. The fourth reason is when life feels heavier without your presence. The fourth reason an avoidant comes back is rooted in the undeniable weight of absence. Life in its complexity is often easier to navigate with the support, understanding, and stability of someone who truly cared. When an avoidant walks away, they may believe that distance will bring freedom, independence, or relief from emotional intensity. But what they fail to anticipate is the vacuum their departure creates, a space that no temporary distraction, shallow connection, or surface-level excitement can fill. At first, they may not feel the difference. Days pass with new routines, social interactions, or diversions. They convince themselves that independence is fulfilling, that emotional detachment was a choice they desired. But gradually, the reality begins to sink in. Simple tasks feel heavier. Challenges that once seemed manageable now carry more emotional weight. Decisions that previously seemed straightforward now feel exhausting. They begin to realize that the energy, encouragement, and reassurance you once provided cannot be replaced. Psychologically, humans rely on emotional scaffolding, the support systems built through genuine connection. You were that scaffold. Your presence was not merely comforting, it was a stabilizing force. When the avoidant is confronted with the chaos of life without that anchor, they begin to recognize how much they relied on you, often subconsciously. They remember how your calmness balanced their anxieties, how your understanding mitigated their insecurities, and how your patience allowed them to be themselves without judgment. That realization grows heavier with each day, until it can no longer be ignored. This awareness is different from simple longing or nostalgia. It is a deep psychological confrontation with the truth. Life feels unbalanced without the connection they once had. They notice the absence of your influence in their decisions, the missing guidance in stressful moments, and the void of someone who truly saw and valued them. Emotional dependence, which they may have denied or resisted, becomes undeniable. They understand that the ease, motivation, and peace they felt when you were present are gone, replaced by a subtle but persistent heaviness. Even the avoidant who prides themselves on detachment cannot escape this internal weight. The mind instinctively recalls what was once reliable, what was safe, and what made life feel lighter. Your absence transforms into a psychological anchor, pulling their attention back to the very person they thought they could leave behind. In short, the fourth reason avoidants return is because life without you feels heavier. It is the absence of your energy, your support and your presence that forces a reckoning. They may not articulate it, and they may not fully understand it immediately, but the emotional weight they now carry reminds them of what they truly lost. Your presence was a stabilizing force, and without it, life feels incomplete, challenging, and unbalanced, compelling them, consciously or unconsciously, to come back and confront the reality of that loss. The final reality, the ultimate reason they come back, the ultimate reason an avoidant returns is deeper than any single emotion, memory, or circumstance. It is not nostalgia, not longing, and not even a sudden surge of affection. It is the undeniable confrontation with truth. The truth that what they walked away from was not ordinary, not replaceable, and not ever guaranteed to appear again. Life has a way of showing them what they lost, but it does so in a way that strikes their ego, their awareness and their understanding all at once. When an avoidant leaves, they often do so believing they can find freedom, novelty, or something better. They think distance will simplify their lives, and that emotional detachment is a form of control. But as time passes, reality begins to expose the flaws in that belief. New relationships lack the depth they once had. Temporary excitement fades quickly. Life's challenges feel heavier, without the consistent stabilizing presence you offered. In short, they realize that no one else can replicate the authenticity, support and emotional resonance that you embodied. Psychologically, humans are wired to recognize rarity and value when it is absent. The mind constantly compares the past with the present. Every moment spent in frustration, disappointment, or emptiness highlights what was once abundant: your care, your patience, your unwavering presence. Even the avoidant, who thrives on emotional distance and independence, cannot ignore this comparison. The truth settles in quietly but powerfully: they gave up something extraordinary, and nothing else measures up. This realization does not necessarily arrive gently, it hits in waves. A memory resurfaces, a moment they once overlooked now feels monumental. A sense of comfort they once took for granted now seems unattainable elsewhere. The emotional dependence they ignored or denied while you were present becomes undeniable in your absence. The void reminds them, day after day, that they lost more than a person. They lost a blessing, a partner, and a safe emotional space they cannot recreate. Ultimately, their return is about more than desire. It is about facing the consequences of their choices. Life forces the avoidant to confront the reality of what they abandoned. They are compelled to see what was rare, valuable, and irreplaceable, and that awareness drives them back. But here's the crucial insight: their return is not the gift. The true power lies in your clarity, in your understanding of what was lost, and in your ability to decide whether to allow them back into your life. Their reappearance tests your growth, your boundaries, and your self-respect. It is a lesson, not a lifeline. In essence, the ultimate reason avoidants come back is because life exposes the truth too late for them to ignore. You were not just someone in their past, you were the presence that shaped their emotional reality. And now, confronted with the weight of your absence, they are forced to return and reckon with the truth. They lost something that cannot be replaced, and that realization is inescapable. Now that the avoidant has returned, it's natural to feel a swirl of emotions: hope, confusion, nostalgia, even fear. But listen carefully: their return is not automatically a blessing. It is a reflection of their own realization, a consequence of the absence they created, and a mirror of the value you have always offered. The true power lies not in their comeback, but in your response. Take a moment to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, have they truly changed? Are they ready to meet you on equal terms, respecting your boundaries, your energy, and your emotional needs? Remember, avoidants often return because they feel the vacuum you left behind, not necessarily because they have transformed. Recognize the difference between a return driven by their realization and one that risks repeating old patterns. This is the moment to prioritize self-respect. Your peace, your clarity, and your emotional well-being are non-negotiable. It's okay to forgive, but that does not mean you must forget or compromise. Protect the boundaries you have built. Let their return be a lens through which you evaluate whether this connection aligns with your growth, or whether it is merely a cycle of old patterns disguised as opportunity. Psychologically, this is also a lesson in discernment. Avoid rushing back into emotions, rushing to justify, or letting past attachment cloud your judgment. Observe their actions, not just their words. Notice consistency, effort, and true accountability. Your emotional intelligence, self-awareness and clarity now give you the ultimate advantage. For your own growth, make deliberate choices. If you allow them back, let it be with conditions that honor your value. If not, embrace the freedom, the lessons, and the self-respect you've cultivated. Remember, the avoidance return is a test of your boundaries, your clarity, and your commitment to yourself. And here's my suggestion for you: write down your boundaries, reflect on your past experiences, and be honest with yourself about what you truly deserve. Use this as an opportunity to strengthen your emotional armor and reaffirm your self-worth. The choice is in your hands. Whether you welcome them back or continue forward alone, do it with intention, with strength, and with love for yourself. If you found this insight valuable, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more psychological truths, relationship clarity, and self-growth strategies that empower you to make the right choices for your heart and mind.